everyone, and welcome to Big Question. My name is Ruth. I'm part of the team running Big Question this year. I'm a third year student studying mathematics at Stevenson College. We're so excited to have you with us today. Big Question is just a place where we can tackle some of the key questions surrounding faith, Christianity, God, and life, and just have honest conversations and think through what we believe and why we believe it. So happy to welcome you today. We're going to be looking at the question, relationship with self. What does the Bible say about self-love? And so shortly there is going to be a 20-30 minute talk by Roussell, looking at that question, thinking about what does the Bible say about self-love. And then this will be followed by a Zoom call where we'll have a question and answer with the speaker, Roussell, after the video. So the details of that will be shared at the end of the video and can also be found in the description below the video. So head on over there. We'd love to chat with you, hear your opinions, and it's just a really safe space to explore the big questions together. So without further ado, let's head on over and see what the Bible does have to say about self-love.
Good afternoon, and on behalf of Durham Christian Union, welcome to Big Question. My name is Chris. I live in York with my wife Philippa, and I'm currently studying for a Masters in Theology and Ministry at Cranmer Hall, which is a theological college attached to St John's in Durham, and I'm so glad to be with you this afternoon. We are looking at the question today, relationship with self. What does the Bible say about self-love? And though the idea of self-love stretches back thousands of years, it's enjoying something of a renaissance in our society today. We live in a world that is full of external pressures. Pressure to look a certain way, pressure to act a certain way, and somewhat closer to home, a recent Guardian article exposed how students at Durham University who are from the north of England are pressured to talk a certain way as well. And in this milieu of forces that constantly tell you that you are not enough, you can see why self-love has come back to the fore. It is a defiant no to those who talk down to you. A shining example to yourself of how you feel you should be treated. Or to quote the American spoken word poet Rudy Francisco, perhaps we should love ourselves so fiercely that when others see us, they know exactly how it should be done. And that's an attractive proposition, isn't it? Why shouldn't you love yourself fiercely? After all, you are the person that you spend most of your time with. Why shouldn't you try your best to like the person that you spend most of your time with? But the problem with this idea of self-love is one that anybody who has spent any time with themselves realizes. And the problem is this: actually, we're not always that lovable. We're not always that lovable. And perhaps the hesitancy we have to love ourselves is because we know ourselves a little bit too well. We intimately know how petty we can be. You know, we're all the heroes of our own stories, yet we know we could just as well be the villain in somebody else's. And we feel caught between these two ideas. I want to love myself, but I also have some tendencies that are very unlovable. In the T.S. Eliot play, The Cocktail Party, Eliot voices this idea in a character called Henry Harcourt. And in the play, Harcourt says this. He says, half of the harm that is done in this world is due to people who want to feel important. They don't mean to do harm, but the harm does not interest them. Or they do not see it, or they justify it, because they are absorbed in the endless struggle to think well of themselves. What Harcourt is saying is that in our desire to love ourselves, we get caught in something of a vicious feedback loop. We do things we wish we hadn't, we say things we wish we hadn't, we cause harm that we wish we hadn't. But the relentless societal pressure that encourages self-affirmation means we downplay the darker side of our character in order to produce a shiny, insta-filtered version of ourselves. We are too preoccupied with trying to like ourselves to properly acknowledge that often we are at less than our best. In the endless struggle to think well of ourselves, we hide more and more of our ugliness. And though the world might not see it, we feel it. We try to think well of ourselves, but there is a mountain of shame and regret hiding beneath the surface. We feel like frauds, but we feel like we have to continue playing the game. Because if they out there find out who I really am, they might not like me. If they truly know me, they won't truly love me. And I think the heart our culture has for self-love is good, but I think it goes about it upside down. Rather than, like Francisco says, loving ourselves in order that others might love us, I think the real key to self-love is the other way around. Until you realise how deeply loved you are, you cannot begin to truly love yourself. There's an incident in the Gospel of John, one of the eyewitness accounts of Jesus' life, that mirrors the situation that we find ourselves in. In John chapter 4, Jesus meets a Samaritan woman who was something of a social pariah. And for the woman, this encounter with Jesus transforms her entire life. Please let me read. So he, that's Jesus, came to a town in Samaria called Sychar, near the plot of ground Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired as he was from the journey, sat down by the well. It was about noon. When a Samaritan woman came to draw water, Jesus said to her, "Will you give me a drink?" His disciples had gone into town to buy food, and the Samaritan woman said to him, "You're a Jew, and I am a Samaritan woman. How can you ask me for a drink?" For Jews do not associate with Samaritans. Jesus answered her, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is that asks you for a drink, you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water." "Sir," the woman said, "you have nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. Where can you get this living water? Are you greater than our father Jacob, who gave us the well and drank from it himself, as did also his sons and his livestock?" Jesus answered, "Everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty again, but whoever drinks the water I give them will never thirst. Indeed, the water I give them will become in them a spring of water welling up to eternal life." The woman said to him, "Sir, give me this water so that I won't get thirsty and have to keep coming here to draw water." He told her, "Go call your husband and come back." "I have no husband," she replied. Jesus said to her, "You are right when you say you have no husband, because the fact is you have had 5 husbands, and the man you have now is not your husband. What you have just said is quite true." "Sir," the woman said, "I can see you are a prophet. Our ancestors worshipped on this mountain, but you Jews claim that the place where we must worship is in Jerusalem." "Woman," Jesus replied, "believe me, a time is coming when you will worship the Father neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem. You Samaritans worship what you do not know. We worship what we do know, for salvation is from the Jews. Yet a time is coming, and has now come, when the true worshippers will worship the Father in the Spirit and in the truth, for they are the kind of worshippers the Father seeks. God is Spirit, and his worshippers must worship in the Spirit and in the truth." The woman said, "I know that the Messiah, called Christ, is coming. When he comes, he will explain everything to us." Then Jesus declared, "I, the one speaking to you, I am he." Just then his disciples returned and were surprised to find him talking with a woman. But no one asked, "What do you want?" or "Why are you talking with her?" Then, leaving her water jar, the woman came back to the town and said to the people, "Come, see a man who told me everything I ever did. Could this be the Messiah?" In this passage, Jesus meets a woman who has had 5 husbands and is currently living with a man who isn't her husband. In the culture of her particular time and place, this would have been an incredibly shameful set of circumstances. And you can see the woman herself is ashamed because she's out in the midday sun collecting water, confident that everyone else in her town will be indoors sheltering from the heat. And so going out in the middle of the day, she guarantees avoiding social interaction. However, Jesus doesn't treat her as she expects. Yes, he sees her flaws. Yes, he sees her shortcomings. And yes, he sees where she has made wrong turns in her life. But he still speaks with her. He still engages with her. He still shows her the one thing that she has been craving: genuine love. And I don't mean romantic love, I mean a deep affection and care for another person as other, as an end in and of themselves. Being seen and known by Jesus transforms the woman at the well from somebody who hides in shame from her community to somebody who is out shouting about Jesus to anyone who will listen. Knowing that God loved her in spite of her flaws was enough to transform her perceptions of herself. She needed to be loved and know that she was loved before she could truly love herself. And I think it's the same for us too. We hide the things that we've done from others because we worry they might not love us. But God sees us, warts and all. God knows us perfectly, but still loves us. Until you know that you are loved, you cannot begin to truly love yourself. Jesus' love for us took him to a Roman cross, where he took our guilt, our shame, our mess, our brokenness upon himself and dealt with it. All gone, all done away with, so that we might enter a loving relationship with him. And not only can we have a relationship with this God of love through what he has done for us, but we can also truly love ourselves. My contention earlier was that you cannot begin to love yourself unless you realise that you are already loved. And in Jesus, we see a God who loves us even to the point of death. A love so powerful that in Jesus' resurrection it defeats death, and if you let it, promises to pull you safely through to the other side, into an eternal relationship with the eternal God of love. There's a somewhat archaic story called Johnny Lingo and the 8 Cow Wife, and it goes a little something like this. In those days and in that part of the world, if a man wanted to marry a woman, it was necessary for the man to pay the father of the bride a dowry. And usually the expected dowry was a couple of cows, but depending on how badly he wanted the bride, a man could go as high as 5 or 6. And now it just so happened that Johnny Lingo was in love with a woman called Mahana. She lived in the island next over from Johnny's. And Mahana, well, let's just say the villagers agreed that her father Moki would be lucky to get one cow for her. She was slouched, she was sallow and sullen, and when Johnny arrived to bargain for her, shrewd old Moki asked for 3 cows because he thought at least Johnny Lingo will have to offer 1 cow in return. And Johnny goes up to Moki, squints his eyes for a bit, and he says, Moki, 3 cows is a lot, but it's not enough for my Mahana. I will give you 8 cows for her hand in marriage. And the villagers were stunned, and Moki agreed before Johnny could change his mind, and so Johnny paid 8 cows for poor, sad-looking Mahana. And with all the villagers sniggering behind his back, he went home with his bride, and it was some time before anybody heard from them again. Years later, it just so happened that the villagers were on a trading trip to Johnny's island, and they stopped in for a visit. And when he arrived, a stunning young woman met him at the door. She stood tall and straight, her face glowing, her eyes shining. And stammering, the villager asked to speak to Johnny Lingo. And Johnny arrived at the door, and after they exchanged pleasantries, he asked Johnny, "Who was that beautiful woman who greeted me?" To which Johnny replied, "Well, that was my Mahana." And he could tell the villager was struggling to believe him. He couldn't reconcile this beautiful woman with the one that he remembered from all those years ago. And so Johnny explained to him what person could truly be beautiful if they believed they were worth 1 cow. We are as beautiful as we are told we are. And a woman who is told she is worth 8 cows will become an 8-cow wife. Like I said, it's archaic, but to put it crudely, we are God's 8-cow wife. And that's no small thing, to know that regardless of what the people you know might think of you, regardless of what society might think of you, even regardless of what you might think of you, God looks at you and says, loved, loved, loved. We can love ourselves despite our flaws, our failures and our imperfections, because we have been deemed of infinite worth by the creator of the universe. But here's the twist. Though all I have said so far is true of the Christian life, it's not quite the full picture, because the love of God isn't just a comfort blanket that justifies self-love. The love of God is a life-altering force that turns our inward gaze upwards to God and outwards to our neighbours. The love of God is supposed to transform our self-love into a selfless love. A love that puts us at the centre to a love that puts God and everyone else at the centre. A selfless love that is to be shared with all. And today, this God who became a man in Jesus Christ, who loved us to death and beyond, is holding out his hand to us and asks, will you let my transforming love into your life? I see you, I know you, warts and all, and I love you deeply. I gave myself for you and will continue to give myself for you, but will you let me? The Bible has to say about self-love that we can love ourselves because we are deeply loved. And if that's something that you are wrestling with at the moment, if you are wrestling and struggling with this idea that you could like yourself, that you could be loved, please come and join us in the Zoom chat afterwards. I would love to be able to talk to you further about it. But just know this. Do you know that you are loved? Christians, followers of Jesus, know that deeply, know that intimately. They have experienced that love for themselves. Have you? Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. We are now, if you want to, we're going to have a Q&A session on Zoom. The details will be shared either in the description or in the comments below. If you have questions, if you want to have a bit of back and forth, come and join us on Zoom, and we'd love to engage with you in that. But if you are leaving us now, thank you so very much for joining us. It's been great to have you with us. My name is Chris, and this has been Big Question. God bless. Have a great weekend.
Great. Well, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed that, found it interesting, found it helpful. If you have any questions for Chris or would like to chat through, think through this topic further with some members of the Christian Union here in Durham, then head on over to the Zoom call in a moment when this video is finished. But before you go, I'd just like to let you know about a book delivery service that we're going to be offering here at Big Question. So attached to the video down in the description, there will be a link, or there is a link, to a Google form where you can fill out your name and address, and a member of the Durham Christian Union will drop a Uncover Mark book over to you. It's completely free, so why not? So Uncover Mark is Mark's Gospel, which is the second of the 4 Gospels in the Bible, detailing the life of Jesus and his ministry. And it also comes with questions alongside to really think through the passages and see what the Gospel of Mark is saying and the claims that it's claiming. So yeah, do fill out that form if you'd like a copy of that. And do join us again in 2 weeks' time, so Friday the 13th of November, again at 1 o'clock here on Facebook, followed by a Zoom question and answer, where we'll be looking at the question, relationship with others. Why do we care about injustice in the world? So that should be a really interesting time. So I hope you come along for that. So if you're heading over to the Zoom, see you soon. If not, have a great rest of the day, and take care.